Today's Thursday, October 22nd, and it's a little past 7:30 in the morning right now. Been up for a little while and driving around up towards the east side here, and things are looking a little hazy this morning. A fellow photographer told me that some of the smoke from the California fires has been blowing in, and this kind of fits the bill. Looks about right. So my hope is this won't really affect what I'm shooting down the canyon today or down in the washes, because it might just be like a big softbox. But then again, I kind of wanted some of that reflected light, so we'll just play it by ear and see how it goes. So far, this morning light's actually working in my favor. The sun just barely come up over the ridge line here, and the smoke in the air is kind of giving it almost like a golden hour kind of feel. As I dumped into this wash and started walking away, I turned around behind me, and the entire line of trees is just getting kissed by this light, and it looks really, really good. So I'm set up here with the 24-70 zoomed in, almost pretty much bang on 70 millimeters. And I'm just shooting down the wash and trying to get the curve as it leads off into the distance up off to the left. And yeah, I mean, it's the light's doing all the work. It's just magic. So I've got this frame. There's this one big pine tree off on the left-hand side that I'm trying to anchor the frame with, along with the sandstone that's coming down on the left side. And then the right is just all trees. And then the background's got the sandstone monolith that's behind it. That's all in shade right now. It just works. So right now I'm sitting at f9, ISO 100, shutter speed of 1/30 right now. And I'm focusing on this one group of orange trees bang in the center of the composition. Not too terribly concerned about getting all the ones on the side in focus. I kind of want your eye to go towards what's sharp, which is right in the middle, right where the light's hitting. And that's about all there is to it. Now I'm set up on this scene here where it's got this red maple tree, and I'm not sure what kind of tree it is that's next to it, but it's got these yellow leaves on it. So I've got red with yellow, and it kind of creates this cool juxtaposition of color along with the darker rock with mosses and stuff on it in the background. It helps the color kind of pop out. I think it works pretty well. I'm purposely underexposing this just probably by about a stop or stop and a half, just to get the color to pop out more and make the background a little darker. And I think it works. I think it looks really cool. I've also got this big red sandstone wall to the right of my composition here that I'm trying not to include. I just want to get the darker sandstone in the background with the trees on it. So I've cropped in tighter with the longer lens here. So my settings on this one, I've got the 70-200 out, and I'm almost at 100 millimeters. Aperture of f11, shutter speed of 1/8, ISO 100. By now these settings are probably sounding really familiar because it's what I use most of the time. I focused for one of the red patches of leaves that I'm kind of trying to use to grab your attention, but at f11, everything's pretty acceptably sharp. The scene doesn't have a whole lot of depth. It's got some in the foreground, but I've kind of cropped a lot of that out. One of the things I liked about this composition too is this yellow tree's got this branch that's kind of laying down, and it kind of swoops down towards the bottom of the composition, but then it follows up this left arc up towards the middle. It's kind of a cool lead-in line. Just a little bit of leaves on the branch too to grab your attention. So now I'm set up on this maple tree here that's up against a ponderosa tree. It creates this kind of neat little tight scene that's up against the wash here. It looks really good on camera. So I actually had to climb up on the side of this slightly sketchy hill that I'm hanging off of here. It's a little bit of a drop into the wash, so I'm trying not to fall off. But that's gotten me high enough to be able to shoot down at the scene instead of up, because I'm trying not to get the sky through the branches that would be blown out. And it's worked for me here. So I'm actually going for a square crop this time, just to kind of contain all of the chaos that's around the scene and just isolate the red maple with the ponderosa tree and a little bit of the rocks and roots in the foreground. Again, just using the in-camera masking feature, so it just shows you the square 1-to-1 ratio, but it still actually takes the entire full image, so you can adjust the crop later, but it helps me frame it so that I know that I've got what I want and within my 1-to-1 square crop. And one important thing for me here on this shot too, especially since I'm cropped in so tight, using a square crop as well. Since my tripod's set up on this slope of sandstone here, it's really critical to make sure the camera itself is level, because I don't want the ponderosa tree leaning in my frame, because then I'll have to rotate, it'll crop in even tighter and I'll lose information. So I've taken a lot of time to make sure that the camera is actually level. The tripod itself isn't so much, but the camera is level to earth. This one's with the 24-70. I'm at f11, 1/13, ISO 100. And I focus for the center of the red maple tree, which is also giving me focus on the bark of the ponderosa tree. It looks really good. So, and this ponderosa tree's got some sort of sign on it too, probably from the Park Service, but it's pretty small in the composition, and it's something I'll probably retouch out of there and take out, which I don't have a problem doing, stuff like that. I mean, if I was going to remove the entire tree, they'd be ridiculous, but just a small retouch like this, where it's just a small little distracting element, no problem, super easy to take out. So there's a scene here that's got another maple tree. It's kind of turned into a theme here. But of course, the maples are what looks the best down here right now with all the color. So naturally I gravitate towards shooting the maples. But I found one that's got patches of green and yellow in it, but then it's got just the very tips are turning orange and red. It's super cool looking. So, and then it just so happened that there's also the foreground interest in the sandstone here that kind of swoops off to the left and S curves out to the right and in the background. So gives you a little bit of a lead in with your eye and stuff. And then in the background is this red tree that's also pretty cool looking too. So I've got the 24-70 mounted here, shooting at 50 millimeters, f11, shutter speed of 1/20, ISO 100. And I did go ahead and focus stack this one because I think I'm going to want it all in focus. The bottom right-hand corner of the composition, I've got a patch of rocks here that I'm using as an anchor for the photograph, and then the main tree on the right here, and then there's that background tree that I also want in focus. So the challenges with this composition are just the bright sky in the background I'm trying to crop out and make sure I don't get. And then off to the left, on top of the sandstone lip, there's this green bush here that I'm trying to keep out of the composition too, because I can't quite frame it as well and make it make sense, so it doesn't look good to have it just chopped off in the left frame. So I've actually stuck to the right a little bit, and then I got to crop in enough to keep the sky in the background out. And I think it makes a really cool photograph. I did actually try to use the in-camera 16:9 crop to try to make it just a little more panorama, but I lose a little bit more of the foreground here. I'm not sure if I like that, so I did go ahead and stick with the 3x2 and compose it that way. And if I change my mind later in Lightroom, I can always crop it down. So, and that's that. So something I was just kind of thinking about sitting here, eating some snack crackers was, 2020 has been a pretty rough year for everyone. I consider myself to be pretty fortunate. I've been insulated against a lot of the major hardships, and I work in the medical industry, so it's been really busy for us, which a lot of people don't have even jobs right now, so I feel really fortunate. But I just kind of buried myself in my work this year, and I haven't really had much opportunities to go out and shoot photographs a lot. So I'm a little rusty, you could say. And the start of this trip was a little rough for me because it took me a couple days to get to a point where I feel like I'm actually being productive and I'm in somewhat of a flow state. So first couple days are rough. I'd walk by something, not see a composition, and then a couple days later I'd shoot that because there was something there and I just couldn't see it. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, this is work. You get up in the morning early and you drive out to location and you just pound in the miles, hiking up and down, looking for things to shoot, and it's work. I mean, we basically come punch in and at sunrise and work all day and then punch out at sundown, you know. And whether or not you like my photographs or not, I guess the point is that it takes a lot of work to do them. So I don't know what that means. It's just, I guess, just don't get discouraged if you just roll up to a location and take the first shot. It's not this epic, awesome version of it like you might have seen on Instagram or something. This just takes a lot of work. So that's all. So I walked past this scene a couple times, actually. Kept thinking that there was some type of composition there, but I just couldn't see it as I was walking by until I finally stopped and set my tripod up. And sure enough, once I started trying to line up a composition, it makes sense. So there's this dead trunk that's fallen down from above and it's landed down in the wash, but there's just a couple small juvenile maple trees growing around it. And the dead limbs of the trunk mixed with the slightly past prime red leaves on the maples makes for a really interesting kind of combination of like silver and red, which is kind of what I kept seeing in my head as I was walking by. And I just happened to walk by this at about the right time too, which I think is what kind of captured my eye, because the wall behind me is actually in direct sunlight right now and it's sending reflected light into the scene, although it's a little muted because we got a lot of smoke in the sky today, but slightly reduced, but still the same kind of effect. So I have the 24-70 mounted on the camera right now, and it's racked all the way out to 70 millimeters, just filling the frame with all of these red leaves. And I've actually put the dead trunk on the right third. I tried it in the center, but I don't think I liked it quite as much. It's off to the side. So I'm shooting this one at f11, shutter speed of 1/13, ISO 100 as usual. A single frame too. I'm not too worried about trying to focus stack or any fancy thing like that. I'm okay if some of the leaves that are closer to the lens or off to the side or slightly out of focus, because I kind of wanted to pull your attention into the trunk, which I think is kind of the main subject anyway. The one thing I am having to worry about here, the biggest challenge I have, is that this is in the corner of the canyon. You might even be able to hear it. It's a little bit of wind in here right now. It's blowing the leaves around. So I'm trying to wait for, a calm moment where I can take it and not get too much motion blur. Just like that. That's a little bit of movie magic, because I actually sat on this for like 15 minutes. Well, all in all, a pretty productive day for me, I think. Pretty satisfied with the work I did this morning and this afternoon as well. It's probably one of my best days in the park so far. Kind of feel like I'm just now starting to get in the swing of things, and now the week's almost over. It just blows my mind because it's gone so fast. But tomorrow is my last full day in the park. I have Saturday too if I have something I want to finish up, but I need to give up my campsite. So we'll play that by ear and see how it goes. The last couple days, the washes have been really good to me. I've been really productive down there. I feel like tomorrow I'm just going to stick with what's working, and there's a couple more compositions I'd like to try out down there. There's one in particular that looks really good, but it's a little green, so I'm letting it bake a little bit. Hopefully that'll happen either tomorrow or Saturday. And yeah, that's where we're at. So I think I'm going to call it for the day and head back towards camp, and just want to say thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.